Hey y'all, wanted to introduce you to a new project truck here for the shop. And right. Oh, that looby dooby's working good. It is not mine. It's belongs to an older gentleman, customer of mine. This is a 61 or 2 Ford Unibody. Um, Full confession, I love these 1960s Fords, especially the Unibodies. I've always wanted one. I have also always kind of toyed with the idea of doing late model engine swaps in them, because the inline 6s and/or V8s, 292s that you could get in these trucks, they're pretty old school, obviously, in the fuel mileage and gearing and all that business. I mean, they're not ideal for modern day cruisers. They're fantastic trucks though. What's going in here is a 2003 Ford 4.6 2-valve motor with the overdrive automatic 4R70W. We've already bought the, I forget the name of it. We've already bought the wiring harness assembly, the ECM harness, all that. It's a $1,700 purchase. Comes with the transmission controller. So what we're going to build here is going to be a relatively low horsepower cruising machine. It's going to be pretty cool. A lot of guys are doing the Crown Vic swaps on these, which are great, but I don't like the wheel setup you have to run, the real wide wheels, A lot of them you see with the actual Crown Vic wheels on them. I like the wheels that are, have more back spacing, look more traditional. And the complexity of that swap, especially on a unibody, it's just a lot of work for, to me, what's somewhat of a bastardized build anyways. My first step, I'll show you a better detail under the hood what we're going to do. We're going to basically strip everything down to what it would have been originally, just leaving the truck wiring, like the lighting and all that, and like we're doing in the LS swap and the other vehicles, we're going to integrate the aftermarket stuff with the new. Excuse me, it's morning, it's early. Starting in the front, it's got a pretty neat front end treatment. I like this grill. A lot of the custom grills that they make for vintage trucks, really to me, are kind of crappy and cheap looking. This looks pretty nice. Actual tubes. This truck is kind of a sort of a rat rod build, but I mean, honestly, it's more stock than anything else. It's got this rattle can black over what looks to be blue paint. The interior here, we've got a fairly stockish type seat. One thing I'm not a big fan of, these huge tall shifters. Kind of a, and like I said, this was Cadillac powered, so it's got a little emblem there, Cadillac. So hopefully that'll come off the glass without tearing anything up. But I think these old Ford interiors are pretty cool. Plain Jane. How old do you think that is? I've never seen one of those that shape. Anyways, this truck I think has at least some parts in it that are pretty old. I mean, that Stewart Warner temp gauge. Somebody's been piddling with this for a long time. I don't even know what that is, but I haven't been under this truck, so I'm not sure what we're dealing with. Got an aftermarket heater assembly. This guy eventually wants to go vintage air, so, and look at this tack, that is cool. Sun Super Tack 2. Look at that thing. I don't know what the vintage of that is, but I've never seen one before. Yeah, Cadillac mirror there. Now, one thing that is weird about this that I'm not too crazy about. Look at that. It's got like a wire headliner, spider web looking, I don't know, they're trying to go for some Black Widow theme here. I mean, you've got spiders all over the place. So that's a little interesting. Probably not what I would do, but who cares? It's not my truck. I still think it's awesome. I'm a huge fan of the unibody trucks. I think they're cool, especially the short beds, but the guy that owns this is pretty patriotic. The bed's got some hackery going on, but those wheel tubs have been widened by about 10 inches. Got patches in all the corners. Got a custom tailgate. If any of you have ever, sorry about the traffic, if any of you have ever seen these tailgates or these unibodies, this is definitely not stock. I think the tail lights on these are cool. My neighbor actually has one of these. It's an original white over red, somewhat similar to what I'm doing in my 76 F-150. I like the old Keystones, side cutout, exhaust. It's just a pretty cool truck. Not everybody's taste, but I think it's great. One of the first things we got to do to this gym is pull all this stuff out of here. It's got a lot of crap all over the place. It's kind of a rather poor quality build as far as execution of you know, wiring. And look at this interesting little switch thing here. Aftermarket power steering gearbox added, which also has some pretty cool stuff. Pretty nifty work there. Some brazed on 90-degree home built fittings. I mean, you can buy all this stuff from any of the aftermarket suppliers, but neat little piece of galvanized stuck on there for whatever reason, not sure. But that's going to be the first job. Our fuel line here starts here, comes up around the engine bay, up over the master cylinder, and then down to the carburetor. It seems kind of a long way around. We're going to pull the entire exhaust system out. Those awesome cutouts. Some of that Ray Charles welding stuff going on. Get these Cadillac pipes out. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the Cadillac motor mount brackets, but there's lots of room in here for the motor we're putting in it, so we'll probably also pull that little cover off. You can see those cut marks. Somebody chopped it for, I don't know, crankshaft clearance or I mean, I don't know why somebody would do that. I mean, they cut the weld or cut the seam all the way across, but we're going to undo a lot of little things like that. We'll start tomorrow on that. So this ought to be an interesting project. I love these trucks. It's me again, and only me, and it's right in the middle of the work day. So like I said, working by myself now, and hopefully that'll work out good for you guys and my channel. So here we have the Ford Unibody, and here we have the little mill that's going to go in it. My game plan is basically what everybody's game plan would be. We're going to take this and we're going to mount a transmission to it, the 4R70W, and we're going to down in that hole there and see what it's going to take to make everything work together. Pretty much it's going to be a pain in the butt, but it's going to be fun, at least for me, and hopefully for you too. So I guess I'll find out when these videos hit the air and I've got 5,000 views or I got 5. That's going to be the next thing I find out. So what this little gem is a bone stock 2003 Mustang GT engine. It probably makes about 123 and a half horsepower, 150 if you're going downhill. but it'll be a good reliable cruiser, and that's what the guy wants with it. And it will respond real well to boost. So if he wants more horsepower, we can put one of them little spinny things on there that makes a whole lot more horsepower. I'll give you another look at this engine. I did take it apart, clean it, you know, paint it, put new gaskets on it. It's got the little horsey that's got 3 legs. So it's at least a clean engine. I know nothing about it. I haven't heard it run. I honestly felt a little bit of gritty when I turned it. So hopefully that just had minor dirt. Maybe a tiny bit of rust ring on a couple of the pistons. I don't know. We'll find out soon enough. That's where all the magic happens in there. Or in this case, this is where the air goes when we make the motor run. Not much magic. Now that we got her up in the air, y'all can come on in and we'll take a look. There's stuff to see and stuff to unsee. Well, I reckon we'll start this little tour off here in the back, based on the fact that I'm already in the back. One concern I had with this truck was what we're going to do with the fuel system. Before I got the truck over here, I didn't know what we did or did not have as far as the fuel tank goes. So what we do have is a Ford Mustang fuel tank with some really fancy square tube bracketry mounting it up. Now, this is actually good. I'm real happy to find this because you can buy complete fuel tank assemblies for the Ford Mustangs that have basically this same tank, and they are already set up for fuel injection, so for a coyote swamp or whatever. So that's awesome. Basically it gets rid of that big pickup right there. It puts everything on the top, which is basically what you want. Naturally, you're going to want to run an in-tank fuel pump for a modern fuel injection system. The ones you mount on the frame rails, in my opinion, are garbage. Bad idea. This truck has been lowered through the use of cut and torch and a welder. These brackets here have been raised and re-welded. I don't think they're going to fall off of there. Normally this is accomplished with taller shackles, but the builder of this truck probably didn't know they existed, I guess, maybe. We have a panhard bar here, have a Ford 9-inch, which leaks like crazy, so I reckon we'll be doing some seals here. We've got some parking brake cables to nowhere. Doesn't really matter on an automatic. First thing I know we're gonna have to do is pull out this complete exhaust system. It's got the side exit exhaust there. Fine cut job there. Gonna pull that out of the way. This is some of that Ray Charles welding. I mean, I don't know what is even going on here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 little rods all kind of bubble gum together, but whatever it takes. Only got 3 on this side. Moving on up to the front, we've got some kind of an aftermarket transmission crossmember, which may or may not be just fine for what we're gonna do. Oh, I forgot one thing. Here we have a radiator. Actually, it's a transmission cooling unit with a fan on top. That's actually not a bad idea. Moving on towards the front, we've got some cutouts with some more Ray Charles welding. Some scabbing on going there. Not sure why they just welded a big thing there, but whatever. Okay, so one thing we are going to have to figure out is putting a mod motor and later model transmission in it. This little fella for their speedometer isn't gonna work no more. I don't know if it ever worked before. I didn't get this truck in running condition. Testing, testing. Are you there? I'm here. Okay, back to it. Wiring for the cutoffs has been cut off. Not sure what for. Don't matter. Here we have our that ridiculously tall shifter that pokes through the floor with some equally ridiculous linkage built onto it. More booger welding. Moving on to the front. This is that gearbox I told you about. Like I said, I have absolutely no idea what that came from, but it's essentially the same thing you'd see on a street rod. I'll have to obviously go through and tighten up and recheck all the fasteners on the front end. It's got a lowering axle, I think. Don't know. It does have little extenders on the tie rods, or maybe it might just have drop spindles. Doesn't matter. I'm not worried about that part, other than make sure it's not going to fall off. Parts falling off is never good. Most of that wiring, all that junk up there is going to be coming out. Moving around here to the front, he's got a whole bunch of these little service loops, I guess you'd call them, in the brake lines, just randomly scattered about. Then here on the front, we got two big old starter solenoids, which I trust are powering the cooling fans, which, let me move my light again. I don't know if you can see them. There's one there, and there's one offset back there. So, another thing I wanted to show you, not alarming at all, this handy dandy residential electrician house wiring stuff we got going on here. I'm not sure who did this. Maybe it's Ray Charles' brother, don't know. That is not adequate. I mean, technically it'll function, but on a hot rod, something that you're putting your name on, that ain't gonna stay there. So, that pretty much is gonna wrap up the underneath tour. I'm gonna get started with chopping that exhaust out of there. Might be able to pull it out as a unit, but I'm not optimistic. So, hang around, we'll do that. Well, this is actually gonna be pretty simple. A nice gentleman that pulled the engine and trans out, left the crossmember bolts loose, and the crossmember is all that's keeping them things up in the air. So, once I get them off of here, I'll just have to wrestle them out of this hole, so I'm gonna put some spray on KY jelly on it. That way it won't get all trying to come out. So then we'll come up here. Got my transmission jack wedging this thing up so it don't fall out of there and wind up having parts hit me in the head. I've already taken quite a bit of head damage in my lifetime. I should be a vegetable, probably. Say a prayer for me. Okay. So that one's kind of wedged against the steering, so I'll try to leave that there. Push this house out of the way. Alright, so I reckon we'll do this one first. It has a bungee cord down here holding the end on. And right. Oh, that looby dooby's working good. Have a question. How many of you young fellers know what that little bolt is right there screwed into that exhaust pipe? Why that would be there? There's one on both sides. So you figure that out while I'm putting this down. Yep. Okay. Come on, Luby. Don't let me down. This is the part about working by yourself that's not so fun. Whoa. About lost it. About lost it. But I got it. Well, after about 11 and a half seconds of careful thought and deliberation, I believe that to be deliberation. I have deliberated and decided that the first thing I'm going to do under here is undo. And what I mean by that is this is going to go out back. And I mean, it's really nice handiwork, like this little plastic joiner between these hoses. I guess made more sense to buy a little plastic joiner than to just buy a 8-inch longer hose. These really nice thin wall electrical metallic conduit straps. Got 2 holders, but it only got one screw in each one. After looking around under here, I'm gonna have to check all the important stuff real careful, like steering and brakes, and because if the same feller that done this did that, the potential is there for a disaster. Not quite like the Titanic, but kind of like after you eat too much Taco Bell kind of disaster. Maybe worse than that, because I guess you could crash the truck. Well, now that looks a little bit better. All the wiring that's still in this truck at this point is factory lighting harness, which is right there. And the wire that goes down there out to the back. So, the firewall looks a whole lot better, as does the engine bay. My floor, not so much. All that crap came out of this engine bay. Ridiculous. Anyways, is what it is. Also been pulling stuff out of the interior. I pulled a lot more than that out of it, but I wanted to show you this. Typical of old car and truck wiring. It's the ignition switch, which I pulled out. Here we've got house wiring, random stuff, and then right here, tape's about to fall off. Yep, I mean, there's no wire nut. There ain't nothing. And that one was cut. That stuff just flopped around behind the dash. I think this is the horn button. That's pretty nifty. They ought to make them like this today. Put them right on the dash. Like an idiot button, panic button. Don't need those anyways. We're gonna have all the self-driving cars here shortly. Computers will take care of us, I'm sure. Well, that's about gonna do it, at least for now. I think I got rid of enough excess weight. Funny part is I'm putting a fuel injected engine back in it with a big old wiring harness, and it's not even gonna have that much crap in it. So I don't know, not sure exactly what they were trying to do there, but it was unnecessary. Keep in mind, the truck still has all of its factory wiring in it. That was all just extra stuff. All right, well, the time has come where we're going to take this, bolt it to that, using that stuff there, and we're going to swing it up, and we're gonna see about stuffing it in here. Don't really have any major concerns. Valve covers could potentially be close to the master cylinder. Exhaust could end up being close to those lines and fittings on that gearbox, and I have no idea what we're going to end up needing to do on the motor mounts, but I'll go ahead and start bolting this stuff together and we'll swing out in there and see what we're looking at. Well, I got this thing all strapped up, chained up, and ready to go in. I've just taken a couple quick measurements, and I'm definitely going to have to chop that motor mount out and that motor mount out. It's totally in the way. That's thick, like 1/4 inch steel plate welded all the way around. My motor mounts are going to have to be like back here, so that's good and bad. The good is I'll have plenty of room to build whatever I need, you know. There'll be nothing in the way. The bad is I got to get down there with the cutting torch, or not a cutting torch. Can't even talk today. It's 4:30. Anyways, I got to get down there with the cutoff wheel and zip those off. That's going to be fun. I have to have a fire extinguisher in case some of this oil or whatever catches on fire. Well, gentlemen, there's a lot of things that I do out here in the shop that I'll be sitting there thinking about, you know, laying there in bed, looking forward to doing. Quite a few things, but this ain't one of them. But I guess if I don't do it, you guys aren't gonna do it. My wife ain't gonna do it. My neighbors ain't gonna do it. I guess I'll do it. I'll let you watch me try to chop one off, and then I'll turn you off so you don't have to watch me do the other one. I'll cut the bottom one first so it don't pinch my blade when it falls. Almost halfway. Wow, that's hot. I'll assume y'all have had enough of that. I sure have. I'll go ahead and cut this side off. It's one with all the hoses. It's probably going to catch on fire. Well, I've done funner things, but I just can't remember when, like the song says. Got a whole lot more room in here now. I measured, I got roughly 34 inches from there to the face of this big old radiator. And that gives me, with about 2 inches or so behind the cylinder head here, that gives me about 10 inches from around the front of the cylinder head to here, which would be freaking awesome, because then I could use the mechanical fan on the little engine there, in addition to the electric fans that are behind there. So all went well. I'll probably use portions of these brackets on my new motor mounts. Probably at least these big square pieces, because those motor mounts on that, I'll show you later, are basically just one bolt straight through. They're the Mustang mounts. Mounted at like a well, 45-degree angle to the ground roughly. So at this point, what I got to do is clean up the top of this and the top of that. Clean it up good enough where I can get in there and hopefully stick a tack weld on both sides. This is going to be the hard side. It's got lines all over in the way. Because when I swing the engine in there, I'm not going to have any room to try to get in there and clean them with the engine in there, you know, in the way. And then second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize these factory plates like I mentioned. Did I just say factory plates? These are definitely not factory plates. I'm going to utilize some portion of this on both of these to basically build a flat plate that'll bolt right onto this factory Mustang engine mount thing. So basically I'll just have a little square plate, and when I set this thing in there, I'll build whatever combination of, you know, flat steel, whatever I need to do to the plate, and get a few tacks on it so that the motor can, you know, set on it. And then I'll pull the thing back up out of there. The trick with using a bolt style mount is you either have to slot your hole, because when you pick your motor up, it's coming straight up, right? So you either got to oversize this hole or kind of slot it, or this bolt will kind of be jammed in there. Or you have to pull your motor mount itself off after you get the weight up off the engine. So whichever of those options you want to go with, that's kind of what you're dealing with. You can't drill just a tiny hole like that and expect to lift the motor up off of there with these deals at a 45-degree angle. It just doesn't work. So I'm gonna go ahead and probably off camera and just chop these up. Okay, so what I just finished doing is I chopped and hacked and split and whacked on those motor mounts that I cut off, and I made two of these. It already had two holes drilled in each one of them, so I just cut the middle out, and that perfectly slotted them. So these can be, they're going to be obviously up and down like this on the engine block, but they can be, you know, this way or this way, depending on where I want to weld, basically which side I want the bracket, the supports to be on. They could even be upside down as long as they're slotted. So these will work great. I'm going to go over there and bolt them to the engine, just kind of get them on there loose, and we'll see about swinging that in there. Next step, get this thing up high enough that the straight axle will clear the arms on my cherry picker. So I'm going to jack it up and stuff these under the tire. Jack will just barely squish under there. It's like literally 4 inches from ground to the bottom of this axle. Okay. Now I have to think of what's next. You want to help? Well, this is going to be a little sketchy. If it falls on me, call 911. This is when it's good to have another set of hands. So far, that's all I got, and my feet ain't no good for this. Now, I will tell you, I hate installing motors and transmissions bolted together like this. What I typically like to do is one or the other. Have the transmission already in the car, and the motor drop in. I don't like this angle stuff, unless you're jerking them out at a salvage yard. Too easy to tear stuff up, and too easy to, like that. But, in this case, I have no attach points anywhere. I can't stuff the transmission in there because there's nothing to bolt it to or establish where it needs to be. So, at least for now, let's go in just like this. Then I can kind of establish where it needs to be for the back, left, right. Get the proper pinion angle, which typically is not very adjustable. But so I just have to do it this way. Hopefully I get the thing in here. Get a couple of tacks in the motor mounts, get the transmission mount modified, whatever I got to do, get that where it needs to be. That'll lock down my forwards and back. Then I can just throw a strap under the transmission, and if I need to pull this thing out again, I can just pull the engine by itself. I don't know. I'm kind of just winging it. You gotta notice. Okay, so we're gonna try to come back a little more. I'm going to try not to get directly under it. Okay, as far as I can go that way. Oh man, glad this truck ain't painted and looking pretty. We'll be having to wrap it in pillows. Big heavy piece of vinyl. Hopefully make it a little more controllable. I can cinch this strap up here and kind of get a little bit more of an angle on it. I'm just going to just barely squeak it over that. Okay. Guarantee you this is the first time this truck's ever had a fuel injected motor under it. Say a prayer for me. Boy, I don't like doing it this way. Okay. What I need to do now is get up there, try to push a little bit more angle. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Well, I got it under the lip, a little pinch weld seam that firewall and the floorboard come together. It was catching the top of my transmission output. And I'll tell you what, you couldn't squeeze a mouse pecker between this oil pan and that top of that radiator bracket. We're going to see if I can go ahead and get this thing in here like this. I think it'll go. Hey. Cool. All right, got me a board wedged in there. Plenty of room over here. Plenty of room over here. All we got to do is get past the dang battery box bolt. Okay, let me clear that. So I'm going to pull the engine this way. Thing's heavy. Gotta go straight down now. Sneaking. Woo. There she goes. Okay. I'm about a 1/16 of an inch from the little gizmo brake sensor thing some genius put on there. Okay, we're clear of everything over here. Need to level it up a little. Okay. I think we're good to drop straight down. All I gotta look out for is that at this point. Balancer is just digging into that board a little. That's all that is. There she goes. Let's get her back this direction. All right, we are now clear of everything by a country mile. Don't know what that actual measurement comes out to be, but we're clear of everything. We are setting on the cross member that comes down there. It's not a transmission cross member. Well, it may have been originally, but okay. Cool beans. Well, I tell you what, fellers, that engine bay is big, but it just got a whole lot smaller. I can tell you right now where my problem is gonna lie. And it's gonna lie in that little Mickey Mouse power steering gearbox conversion that somebody's done. The motor is just kind of sitting in there hanging. Transmission is sitting on top of a jack. There's tons of room pretty much everywhere. Can't really see down there, but there's a fair amount of room everywhere. I mean, I still got almost a foot for the motor could go straight back, except for that little gem. So I don't know what that came from. But it's in the way. And what it's in the way of is going to be the exhaust. So the rear port is here, right where my finger is. And the problem with that gearbox is it's mounted at a pretty steep angle, so it's going to be interfering with the collector. So I can drop the engine down some, but it's going to interfere at some point. I mean, I'll have to go through my sets of exhaust manifolds to see what will work. We don't want to put no headers on it at this point, or he doesn't want to. Besides, we got to figure out first how to physically bolt the engine in place. And if I have to put the engine this far forward, which is way farther forward than I want to, then there's almost no room for a fan, which is fine. This thing with the big block Cadillac has dual fans, and it didn't have a mechanical fan either, so that part wouldn't be the end of the world. It's the exhaust I got to figure out. So I'm gonna go grab what exhaust manifolds I have and see what we're looking at there. Well, we got this little turd kind of shoved down in the hole there. We definitely got some figuring we're gonna have to do on the exhaust system. I've got a couple inches farther back I can go with the motor without modifying the firewall. I'm most definitely gonna have to cut out a section of that cross member there. It's gonna prevent the engine from dropping down low enough. So I'll have to kind of box it and build a bolt-in part for it. I really don't like chopping them cross members out when you're still got a leaf spring ride. It braces the rear shackle mounts. So I got room for days all the way across down low. The motor will sit a little lower than it is here. I got a lot of room, both sides. Over here is where the problem is. And you can see what the deal is there. Don't think the exhaust is going to work like that. And scooting the engine all the way forward, nothing I do gets it, you know, where it'll clear. It still runs right into it. So I think I can use a truck manifold, which comes out farther that direction and dumps almost straight down. So I think with a combination of moving the engine back about 1.5 inches more, 2 inches, I think I can just barely sneak that manifold to the rear and down around that box. That in combination with pushing the motor over a couple inches, and I think that'll get it. So I don't know though. That's right there is a disaster. That's pretty typical of working on hot rods. Got tons of room everywhere else, but just the way it goes. Well, I've about got enough footage saved where I'm gonna have to blow this play dead. We're gonna make it work? We're not gonna make it work? I don't know. Tune in next time and we'll find out together, I reckon.